it's a production by Society for Certain Peoples and the Brazilian filmmaker Thomas Pedro. The movie has since it has been produced, it has been screened at various festivals. It has won several prizes in Brazil mostly. And despite being 4 years old now, I think it has not lost urgency and its relevance at all. So it's still very up to date when it comes to its topics and the urgency it shows. I would like to share in a few words with you how the idea of this movie grew and how it came to life. I hope you have noticed the vital role of the indigenous communities in this movie. And this is for a reason, and it's because Voices has a very long history working together with indigenous communities all over the world, but particularly in Brazil. Since 2019, we formally have our program called Hands Off the Amazon, as I've mentioned, with this particular focus on the Brazilian Amazon. And we have strategic partnerships with indigenous grassroots organizations in Brazil, particularly in the state of Pará. Our partners are the Tupinambá organization Situpi and the Munduruku organization Pariri. And so working together on equal terms is very important to us. This means that our partners, they tell us about their needs, their wishes, their priorities. And so this is how the idea of this movie came to life, because over and over again, our partners told us about the situation on the ground and about these massive planned infrastructure projects. And they asked us to sensitize about this issue here in Europe. So when I was in Brasilia in 2019, at the massive indigenous peoples gathering, we spent this idea of producing a movie about the issue and also doing research on potential financiers of these projects. There is a scene in the movie where this topic comes up, because all these projects, would not be possible without international financiers financing the project. Then we just spin this idea and work together with the Brazilian filmmaker, with the Brazilian anthropologist, and this is how the idea grew. And actually, I could now give you more details about the projects, about the current situation, the current development around these projects. But maybe we just open up for Q&A, and then we see what kind of questions come, and I can react spontaneously.
Hello. Thank you for sharing this very moving film. I was wondering what were the challenges that you faced while making the movie? I mean, were there any pressures from the government or other such security forces, and how have you responded to such challenges? Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for the question. So one major challenge was very particular to the time when the movie was produced, because as you have probably noticed, this was during the time of the pandemic. So until the very last moment, we weren't sure if we actually could produce the movie because of just safety politics in Brazil, and particularly in the indigenous territories. So this was a big issue, and of course we took the necessary measures to make risks as little as possible. But besides that, yes, political repression is a never-ending risk, and it hasn't been so much of a problem during the production of this movie, particularly, but it's really an ongoing story. And many of the leaders you have met now in the movie, they deal with that in their day-to-day life. I think some of them, they also mention it, and this is really it's really an issue. Many of them, they change their cell phone numbers regularly. They have to move around. They don't communicate their address publicly. They really take measures to protect themselves and also their families. So this is a huge issue, and it's not only the like violation and violence was extremely high during Bolsonaro presidency, but it's still high now. So it's not only an issue of who is the current president. It's really an issue that is very deeply woven into the Brazilian society.
Yes, I have a question for you. We know about all this problem in this region, like for years, for decades. What can be changed? Like even with your NGO, what can be like really? How do you see the things change? Film can change, as you mentioned. It's such deeply rooted in this Brazilian society. Probably, how do you see it can go to this upper level, international levels, or there is not kind of the leverage to change things?
Yeah, I think it really has. There are two sides. On the one hand, it's sometimes very sad, and it paralyzes also because it's exactly, the question is, what can I do and what can we do, and it's a kind of hopeless situation on the one hand. But on the other hand, over the years we have really observed that the indigenous movement has grown a lot. It has really gained strength over the years, and this is really impressive. That they are much more visible in politics on the street, and particularly women play a vital role. This is also seen in the current government, for example, the Lula government. There are indigenous politicians. They are really leaders, and this does have an impact. They are also much better connected to the rest of the world. They have allies. They are part of networks, and this is really a big success. On the other hand, there are again and again huge developments on a political level, for example, which always show the power, the ongoing power of the agribusiness. For example, just right now there are two laws waiting for approval in the Brazilian parliament, and if they are finally approved, they would really be a huge backlash. So it's always both sides, and then what's really so important is not to lose hope and to really focus on these positive developments and this growing movement. This is it in the end. And what we can do here really is to support these movements, bringing their demands to our politics on this level here. And of course, we as consumers also do play a very important role in this global market.
Maybe I also have a question, but a lot of the agribusinesses are also owned by Swiss companies. So how do you navigate that tension, or if that's a tension?
It's a fact. It's a fact that Swiss banks, Swiss businesses, European, American financial institutions, they play a very important role when it comes to financing these projects, of course. And this is also what we found out in our research. Here, I think, again, this is where Swiss NGOs, where other NGOs can really add to this issue by doing advocacy work, lobby work. We do research, we have discussions with these companies when it makes sense, and step by step we hope to add up to this sensitization. But in the end, it's a very long way, and it's of course it's huge players, but this is what we can do, exactly. Yeah.
For me, what is very important is we speak about value creation in Europe. And that means the other side, there is business. We are having a very comfortable life because of the value creation in business. And then, yes, there is a regulation side on the other side, and this has to go hand in hand. And the value creation happens because there are consumers who are using it. And yes, I am definitely part of it, like probably every one of us, without being aware of it. Now it's the same thing in Brazil. Maybe we get this consciousness and awareness in Brazil, but somewhere else in Asia happens the same thing in Indonesia. So for me, the question, to be able to change it, we have to have a big scale of awareness. How do you create this awareness from your knowledge and your experience?
Yeah, it's of course the right question, and it's a big question which I'm not able to answer it by myself. Of course, I can just add some thoughts, and I really think it starts exactly with events like these. It's about sharing these experiences and sharing the urgency on the one hand, but it's also about showing alternative ways. This is a very important aspect as well, and that's something we can do here in Switzerland as well. But it's really also the job of the communities on the ground to show to their society how life could be as well, and how, for example, the use of natural resources, how this could be done in an alternative way as well, and how, for example, forests could be used for income generation in a way that doesn't lead to entire destructions. Just to give you an example, we as Voices, we also support a project which isn't part of this movie, but it's also in Brazil, in the northern part, and it's about cocoa production, where Yanomami people are trained to become cocoa producers. And this is exactly to have an alternative way of income, an alternative to the very destructive gold production. So this is in a very small way. This project shows alternatives, and it shows how forest management can be done in a sustainable way. And I think this is really, we really have to have more of these kind of projects, more of these inspiring ways of how natural resources can be used without causing destruction. That's it. It's about showing good examples.
Thank you for the film. It was really immersing and living. I have a question, but the film reminded me the marble case in the Australia. You should, I'm sure you know it. Is there any legal fight, or is there any legal things going on for that community? And is there an umbrella or a foundation that representing all the indigenous people that living in Amazon in that area? So this is a big area, like lots of millions of indigenous people living there. That was the question.
It's a good point, because it brings me to the current development around these projects. So the one question about the representing organization, there are several. There is a national organization called APIB, which is the umbrella organization of all the indigenous organizations in Brazil. And then there is an organization which represents the indigenous communities in the Amazon as well. There are many massive infrastructure projects going on, so I can't tell you in detail about all of these, what is the current situation, but and some of them, they are already going on. There are already being constructed, But in the case, for example, of the railway called Ferrograu, this is a very interesting case because this case is currently debated at the Supreme Court, and the issue is that in order to construct the railway as it is planned, the border of a national park should be moved. And for this reason, the project and all the activities around the project are now paralyzed by the Supreme Court because a political party, but also a huge civil society alliance, they argue that this shifting of the border is, of course, unconstitutional. So yes, there are discussions going on court. There is a big support for this argument in civil society. It's actually also a very good example that shows the strengths of Brazilian civil society. Again, also here there are two sides, because this is the one side, this is the positive side. On the other side, as I said before, there are political developments going on with laws which would, in fact, really make the situation much more complicated. For example, these laws, they would, in case of so-called strategic infrastructure projects, they would make environmental licensing obsolete. So if these laws come, everything changes and we really don't know what happens then. But until now, they haven't gone through Parliament, so we're still optimistic. And yeah, but we don't know the end of the story yet.
Hopefully the end of the story will shift because of your work and the work of many filmmakers who you're collaborating with, and also the work that the other filmmakers are doing from around the world. So maybe a final question, and then, yeah, Mike. And then we move to the next movie.
Thanks for a wonderful film. I wanted to follow Edda's question, which was the situation in Switzerland. And the question is, where do you position yourselves in actually revealing Swiss complicity in what's happening to these people? Because the Concern for Verantwortung initiative, corporate social responsibility bill, and the group that's trying to push this through soon, the next actually, is really making the connection between what's going on in very concrete places and to organizations, particularly Glencore, in a Swiss context, and also making films that establish these links. But your films seem to hold back from making the Swiss connection. And so I wonder why that is. Is there a kind of politics of what you can say as your NGO? And what do you feel about this really big opportunity to ensure that Swiss companies have to be socially responsible in places like Brazil, and whether your organization supports it, how it supports it?
Yeah, it's very important that Switzerland doesn't remain the only country basically in Europe that doesn't have such a law. So that's for sure the reason, and we also are supporting it actively. We are a member of the coalition, and we support this in various ways. The reason why it's not so much at the very front of this movie is probably because of the moment where the movie was produced, and because it has been produced over quite a long time. But the major reason is that, basically in the report that comes with the movie, there is much more connection to the initiative that comes here in the movie, because the report is much more about numbers and about and about names of companies and responsibility in this sense. But yeah, so the reason probably why you ask this question, why it's not so much on the front of this movie, is that in fact when we did the movie and the research, the project haven't been built yet. And this means that they were still in phase of planning. So the names really of the companies involved in the financing of these projects weren't out yet. Definitely, it was still what we could do was they were potential financiers, and this is what we could do. We then talked to them. We sent letters. We had meetings, etc. But it's not that they were definitely the ones involved. And this may sound like a little picky, but but when it comes to this question of responsibility, it's a very important question. So at the moment, yes, then it wasn't clear yet who was the real responsible financiers. And now we are following up on these cases, and I really imagine that we will continue working on these cases, and hopefully one day we find these responsible companies, and we can continue our work with them. Sometimes it's a little bit pity, because when it comes to corporate responsibility, people only start talking about responsibility once a really bad case has happened, and when it's actually basically too late. But on the other hand, this is only the moment when real responsibility can be really identified. This is somehow the problem where we are in as NGOs. Yeah.
So maybe on a final note, how do you see us now, the audience who's informed about some of the stories, that before it becomes too late, what can we do? How can we communicate with your NGO, or how do you engage with the civil society?
Well, you can spread the word. You are, as I learned, you're also a filmmaker, maybe you're artist in another sense. So I think there are many ways to spread the word about the topic in general. And this definitely helps, because in the end, everything goes together, right? And then, of course, you can support organizations like ours, because what we really do is the strengthening of local organizations, and that's really what makes the difference. And that's what I'm very much sure of it, because I've seen it by my own eyes. They are so strong, and they really keep on fighting every day. And if it wasn't for them, projects would have advanced much more, and destruction would have gone on much further. So really to give support to these local communities, be it in the Amazon or elsewhere in the world, this is really what makes the difference.
Thank you so much, Julia.
Thank you.
And on behalf of EthnoKino community from around the world, we would like to give you 2 awards of recognition, which is in the form of an eye of the god. It's an amulet. It's weaved by indigenous women from Mexico, and there's a mirror in the middle, which is so you can see your future, which is your face. And I think we find this very meaningful. So one is for you, and one is for the filmmaker, and that you continue keeping your vision alive.
Thank you. They're very nice. Thank you so much. Thank you too.